Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Engler-Modig, Editorial Director of GIE Media's Manufacturing Group of Magazines, and today's medical developments, aerospace manufacturing and design, defense and munitions, and EV design and manufacturing. And I'm excited to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Your presenters are Florence Joffrey Black, CEO, President, and founder of MedWorld Advisors, and Dave Shepard, Managing Director and co-founder of MedWorld Advisors. And they are also the authors of today's Medical Developments MedTech Mindset Monthly column. Now, before we head into the presentation, I would like to thank our 2024 webinar series sponsors, Renishaw and Amphenol CIT. Renishaw, from the core of our business to the heart of your manufacturing, our precision manufacturing solutions are helping manufacturers around the world tackle new production challenges. These include the increased demand for innovative new products with more complex parts, higher design specifications, and shorter product life cycles. For more than 50 years, industrial metrology has been the core of Renishaw's business. As precision manufacturers, Renishaw has developed robust process control solutions that give their customers confidence that their parts will meet design intent and that their manufacturing processes perform as required. Process control solutions increase the levels of automation which are possible in manufacturing, reducing dependency on skilled operators to maintain the quality of production parts. The ability to create parts with tightly toleranced features is vital in many industries, such as medical, for the performance, aesthetics, and safety of finished products. Renishaw's industrial metrology systems and sensors capture the data required to identify and control sources of variation, enabling increased throughput with reduced rework, concessions, and scrap. To read more about Renishaw's technologies and their real-world applications, I will share a link in the chat in a bit to register for Renishaw's Innovation Matters magazine. And our other sponsor is Amphenol CIT, formerly known as Carlisle Interconnect Technologies. They are a global leader in designing and manufacturing high-performance wire and cable, including optical fiber. With more than 80 years of experience, the company offers comprehensive product portfolio featuring specialty and filtered connectors, contacts, integrated systems, cable assemblies, complex harnesses, racks, avionics trays, and installation kits. Now part of Amphenol, the company is more committed than ever to excellence, providing top-tier lightweight and durable products for the harshest environments. Additionally, they offer other engineering and certification services for commercial aerospace, military, industrial, test, measurement, and space industries. Visit www.amphenol-cit.com for more information. And finally, we will gladly take your questions you may have for Florence and Dave. Simply type them into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will get to as many as possible. So Florence and Dave, the Zoom platform is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Very nice to be here. And good afternoon, everyone. If you are on the West Coast, I guess it's still good morning. We're happy to have you join us today. The topic of conversation is the impact of M&A in MedTech, which, is definitely a subject that is very much hot right now.
And speaking of M&A, Elizabeth, on your intro, we actually know the team over at Carlisle, and the Amphenol acquisition was really an interesting integration that's taking place, and I think it's going to be very positive for their customers as they go forward. So that was fun to hear about that in the intro. So we can move on to the next slide and introduce ourselves. I'm Dave Shepard, co-founder and managing director. Background in the MedTech industry for several decades, as you can see from the gray banner I have up here. Had the pleasure of being involved in several big companies and being involved running global business units and doing a lot of M&A as part of that. So both organic growth and inorganic growth is through M&A, and being able to see the opportunities that were presented and doing some things, really learning the correct way to do M&A and sometimes learning not the correct way to do M&A. And decided that when I was ready to leave the corporate environment, wanted to get on the other side of the table and help companies to have smooth transitions in M&A, because not every deal in M&A ever, not all deals get done. It's kind of a known in the industry. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on at MedWorld right now is every middle market opportunity that we've been involved with has been successful, has eventually got done. And that's not always the case. And so we try to help our clients to be able to be prepared for that. And it's really important for the deal, both for the seller and for the buyer. So that's why I went from corporate side to this side and got to do this with Florence Dufresne-Black, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Absolutely. So for my part, very quickly, I bring the global aspect to MedWorld Advisors. I was born and raised in Paris, France, came to the United States, and I'm still based here today. With that said, my entire career has been at a global level. I have worked for private and public companies. I have worked for startups as well as private equity firms, really giving me a really good understanding as to what the needs are for each one of those parties, but also what the gaps happen to be. And to Dave's point, our role at MedWorld is really to make sure that we put buyers and sellers together for the right reason. It's not just about the deal, it's also about what happens after the deal is done. So as a company, we are based in 3 locations in the United States. We have Boston, Florida, and San Francisco, California. We also have a legal entity in Hong Kong for some of our Asian transactions. We specialize really in middle market companies, but also innovative companies that have to do with MedTech. And MedTech can be a number of things, but it's dental, med device, digital health, manufacturing, biotech, everything that really goes under the umbrella of healthcare and MedTech. And our sweet spot really is companies that are between $5 and $250 million in revenue. The way we actually operate is an interesting one. We're not like other firms. We actually do work with a team of experts. We bring people into our team when we work with our clients, and we bring people that are specialized in the specific space where our clients actually reside. And so that's very unique for us. And as we mentioned, because we are global in nature, we do have partners and people that we work with around the world.
Which was really important because we just closed a deal in Germany in July. So that was helpful for that.
Absolutely.
And so some of the strategic companies that we've worked with, our team, a collection of collaboration partners around the world, has worked with, are listed on this page. We won't go through all of them. But one of the things when you're working in MedTech M&A, you have to understand the landscape, both relative to the strategic companies that are out there and what their initiatives are, and then also the private equity landscape and what they're thinking about. Private equity has had an interesting transition over the years related to healthcare. When they first got going into it, it was kind of opportunistic. And as over time, as they've started to understand the opportunity in MedTech M&A and healthcare M&A, they actually have PE firms now that have broken out and spun off to focus specifically on MedTech M&A. And there's probably about 500 firms that actually do that. We've listed some examples here. And as we go through this conversation about the impacts of M&A and MedTech, we'll talk a little bit about the strategics and the private equity and some of the impacts related to each type of buyer, because it's really important for sellers to understand the differences, the opportunity with each, and the differences of each to be able to get a successful transaction done.
So with that in mind, it would be good to take a look at where we stand currently with regards to M&A activities. So it's really interesting when we look at where MedTech is trending, we really are going in a very positive direction. Middle market companies are, I think, in higher demand than ever. If you look at where we stand today and the numbers, even though we are in September, really now are being accounted all the way through Q2, is right now the deals that have been made in Q1 and Q2 of 2024 are pretty much equivalent to the entire amount of deals that were done in 2023, which really tells you a lot about the amount of activity that we're seeing and that we're experiencing in the field. What's also interesting is the deal value is up for the deals that we're involved in. And when you're looking at 24 and what's going forward is right now, when you're looking at the capital that is being invested in the field, we are already outpacing where we were in 2023. So if you're looking at, the numbers and you're looking as to, what the trends are, I think that the graph that you see on the right really tells you where we are today compared to where we were in 2023. And look at 2023, that was the entire year. This is just the half of 2024 that tells you where we are. And if you recall, 2021 was a stellar year. It was, record year. I really think that 2024 is really when we're done with the year. When we look back, it's going to be quite extraordinary as well. So if you look at it, there, you can look at deals in different ways. You can look at the number of deals and you can look at deal value. So if you're looking at the volume of the deals, it's actually a pretty good number, but it's not something that you would say is just something that is, you just go, wow, when you're looking at it. But when you're looking at it from a deal value perspective, that's really where you get to see the change in the way the value of the companies, as I was referring to earlier, really comes into play. And that curve that you're seeing that really is going up tremendously is not showing any sign of slowing down. So part of the reason why we're looking at such a change is the fact that mega mergers in the last couple of years had slowed down and they're back. And that's really important when you're looking at the amount of deals, but also the deal value that's going up. But that's not the only thing that is currently going on. Middle market is truly driving what is happening currently in M&A, and middle market is really hot.
Yeah, middle market is really hot right now. And if you would go back to the previous graphs and a couple of the other pages, it said the deal volume was down in 22 and 2023. That wasn't so much because of lack of buyers and lack of money available. It really was because of a lack of quality sellers available in the market that were willing to put themselves out there and test the market. Kind of similar to what's happened in the real estate market, where there was not a lot of real estate available for 22 and 23 because sellers were concerned about what kind of valuations that they could get. It's been the same thing in middle market M&A. So the sellers that have gone to market actually have done very well because there's a lot of buyers that are competing for their properties, and they can continue to be competing for those. Both the strategics we showed on an earlier slide, most of those strategics and more are out there. They have money on hand. If you listen to their quarterly calls, they are looking for M&A. Some are looking for bigger M&A. Some are looking for strategic add-ons to the business units that they have. But almost all of them are looking for inorganic growth at the moment. And then in terms of the PE firms that are out there, I think there's reports about there's probably a record amount of what they call dry powder. And dry powder is basically the investment money they have to spend. And they are focusing on healthcare as much as ever because candidly, the dynamics in MedTech and healthcare are in the market side. I think growth rates are projected to continue to go up. People like myself are getting older. I was commenting to somebody earlier that when I had a little less gray hair, I didn't even know who my doctor's names were. And now that I have a little more gray hair, my doctors know my names. And I think that's kind of the dynamic around the world as far as with an aging population. The interest rates, just topical and timely. A week ago, the Fed decided to go ahead and start the trend down with the interest rates, and that's going to help the availability of money as well, because not only do you have the capital sitting on the sideline with the dry powder, but their ability to leverage more in terms of reasonable banking opportunities is going to be improved with the interest rates trending down. And at the end of the day, if you're in the middle market, they are looking for you. They're looking for companies that are growing, that have a positive EBITDA, that have a good team, and that has market opportunity. So why do strategic and PE buyers choose to grow through inorganic growth and through M&A? It can vary by the specific company and at any point in time. But a lot of the M&A that's taking place on a strategic side can be driven by the fact they might be looking for new customers and new access customers. It can also be on the PE side if they already own a certain asset, they want to bolt on another company to their existing company to gain access to new customers. We've certainly seen that in the contract manufacturing space, where it's really difficult for a contract manufacturer sometimes to get onto an approved vendor list of a major company like Siemens or Stryker or GE. And sometimes they'll make an acquisition to be able to get into that AVL and gain access to new customers. Sometimes they're looking for adjacent spaces. So they're in a current market segment right now, and they want to be able to expand into a neighboring type of market segment for them. Sometimes they're looking for additional market share to be able to continue to grow and give them a little more leverage in the marketplace. Other times they're looking for intellectual property to be able to shore up what they have. and be able to give them a portfolio to be able to continue to enhance. And IP doesn't necessarily need to be patents. People often think of IP as being a patent, but in this day and age, it really can be proprietary algorithms that are being developed. A lot of med device has gone into really being digital in nature, and with having software involved with it and being connected devices. So that can also be IP. And then also just in terms of manufacturing and contract manufacturing, the proprietary processes. I know when I used to run business groups in contract manufacturing, the processes that we had were trade secrets, and that also was IP. And then and sometimes it's just around the market opportunity. They want to get into bigger markets and be able to continue to expand their business for that reason.
So there are four major areas that get impacted when you have M&A take place in the MedTech industry, and there are many areas, but these really are the ones that we view as being major. And the first one would be patient care, and then innovation, growth synergies, and market expansion. And we're going to go through each and every one of them in more detail.
So when we start with patient care, so you think about MedTech M&A, where do the impacts go? Well, one of the things we hopefully all of us think about when we're in the medical industry, because one of the things that's been exciting for me being part of MedTech since my very first job a few decades ago in MedTech is the fact that we're in an industry that actually impacts patients, and the products that are being made can impact your family, your mother, your grandmother, your friends, and then they do impact them. And so one of the things that's really important is to continue to have access to good products. And the right type of M&A can actually lead to increased market access for certain MedTech products, because larger companies and PE firms, they like to see products that are innovative, and they want to put quote unquote fuel on the fire. If something's already been proven to be commercially viable, it just needs to be and is scalable, they can actually help to scale that product and make sure that more patients have access to it and the ability to receive the benefit of those products. And then also, innovation. It's been shown, and in a lot of probably good people listening today, they work in innovation, and the reason you're doing is you're as far as the patient aspect of it is, you're seeking better outcomes for the patients. And we know that in most of the cases, smaller companies are better than larger companies at excelling at innovation. It's tough for a big company to disrupt themselves. They try, they're not often very successful with it. So smaller companies are good at it. And strategic companies and PE firms, it's just because they aren't really good at it doesn't mean they don't need to do it. They know they need to do it. So a lot of times they do look at being able to grow innovation through M&A and building their R&D and building up new pipeline through M&A. Additionally, they look to how they can leverage new technology to be able to get to patients, making some technologies more accessible for a variety of providers. Getting products. Maybe there's different ways through an M&A that a certain larger company might be able to help certain solutions get into different types of market access, even all the way to telehealth. Can improve the patient care and experience. They might have more clinical consultants available in the marketplace, that sort of thing. Can really vary by market type and market and product solution. And then also maybe some better negotiating power to enhance market access. We've been involved in a few M&As where a smaller company growing very nicely, but really was really clear the next level of growth was really to be able to get access to those, especially speaking US centric, into those GPOs and get into those buying groups, and a larger company coming along and helping them and acquiring them can actually facilitate that market access, and then also be able to generate some economy at scale, which for potentially for patients can improve costs and also market price. So hopefully more patients can have access to that.
So innovation is one of the impacts that we also talked about. So why is innovation important? Dave actually referred to some of them already. Expansion of your portfolio. If you are a company of a certain size, creating new technology does not come easy. Strategics, are very well known for having great ideas, but it takes a very long time and a lot of money to get those products to market. And so being able to go and grow through M&A and bring on those technologies through a smaller business, a third party, will help them grow faster and expand their portfolio. It expands the technological capabilities as well. And some of them, it's a question of adding something to something you already have and embedding it into your own technology. The other reason why innovation is important to companies is the same way innovation is hard to grow within a strategic company, is expertise is also hard to come by. And so those smaller companies have been known to bring on board very early on people that actually have the knowledge of the product, of the market, and of the application. And so when an acquisition takes place, it really is important to bring that expertise onto that onto the strategic. And then increasing market share. Again, if you have innovations, you have new things that you can talk to your customers about, right? And so that's going to bring new opportunities, and it's going to expand your access to market, and it's going to increase your market share. So it really, the impact when it comes to really to M&A is really, the question is, do you buy or do you build, right? And that's the question that we hear quite a bit when it comes to strategic. We are talking to a lot of them, and they have, again, good portfolio of ideas. They have IP that they're sitting on, but being able to go and create something out of it is not that simple. They are very slow to move. So sometimes they build, but sometimes they buy, and sometimes buying is a step to them building later as part of their strategy. As Dave mentioned, IP portfolios are important. IP can be a number of different things. They can be, intellectual property, but they can also be the know-how. And that's really important when you're trying to grow a company through innovation, is really being able to bring the know-how that really you can't transfer any other way. The other impact that I think is also very, very important is in the world where technology grows so fast and the market moves so fast, and the needs of patients also increases every single day, being able to bring a product to market in a very fast way. And when I say fast, we know that bringing a MedTech product to market is never fast. We're talking about, multiple agencies that you have to go through, clinical trials, and all of those things. But being able to bring an innovation through acquisition will really speed your way of going to market.
And sometimes that's just relative, right? So, and it can be a driver of M&A, where a larger company typically can be slower in speed to market because of all those things, the process they have to go through, and they have more people involved, and they have to be a little more cautious, a little more conservative in their decision making, where a smaller company can make decisions a little bit quicker, and they have less people involved, and they can get to market just a little bit faster. Now, they won't have the same scale when they get there, but that's where they can be an advantage for the larger, to them to partner with the larger company. They could get there, get the footprint started, and the larger company can come along and scale it, and they can do it faster together than they could have done. Either one of them could have done on their own.
Absolutely. And
that also creates oftentimes access to new markets for companies. So that's what another key driver of M&A. Through they're looking for innovation that can give them access to new markets to continue to grow. And then growth synergies probably is one of the primary drivers when we think about M&A, is growth synergies. And if it's a strategic company, there can be a variety of reasons for those growth synergies. It could be the fact, things that we just talked about as far as access to new markets, getting market share, that sort of thing. If it's a private equity company, it could be the fact that they're looking to invest some of that dry powder into healthcare. They have a thesis around a certain market and make an acquisition. And often what they'll try to do is make an acquisition in a market segment and then add on to that acquisition. And then they get more growth out of that by combining the two forces to make a bigger entity and hopefully higher growth over time. But that's really the number one reason. People think about M&A and they think about private equity sometimes, and they think about, it's all about cost cutting and that sort of thing. Certainly, there's going to be efficiencies and then we mentioned that before down below in the slide. Benefits of synergies and cost reductions and that sort of thing. But the number one reason, if you have a reason to be able to demonstrate growth synergies, and we do that a lot in our M&A processes, is really help drive the value proposition around the deal, is the growth synergy that's going to take place. People make acquisitions because they want to grow, and they want that growth synergy to be there. And that's a huge impact on MedTech. That's really the title of this presentation, is the impact of M&A on MedTech, is growth synergies, and helps the MedTech industry grow faster when the right type of M&A is taking place.
And then we talked about market expansion being another impact of M&A. And as we talked about earlier, definitely getting new customers is a huge impact on any kind of M&A deal, whether it is a platform that you're adding to or a platform that you're starting. It is really going to give you a new range of customers, and you're going to get more value from each customer as well, just because you are offering additional value, additional products in your portfolio, and you're going to be able to offer better services, better products, and better outcomes for each and every one of your customers.
Yeah, and we've done acquisitions with companies that were clients of ours based in Europe, and often part of their growth synergy is thinking about market expansion back to the U.S. and how can they get some synergy with their acquirer to figure out how they go tackle the U.S. market. And similarly, we're working on deals even this year where the U.S.-based company that maybe has some footprints internationally, but not to the level they would like. The acquisition is actually going to help them to be able to get more growth in international markets, including Europe and markets in Asia. So market expansion really can be a key driver of some of those growth synergies, as well as getting into new market segments. And in one case, in one of the deals we recently did, with the technology that they had, and there was going to be really no need for any new innovation. What they really needed to figure out to do is how to use that same technology in a new market segment, and it actually was understood that can take place. So part of their fuel on the fire, so to speak, right now is to create a go-to-market plan for the additional segment for the technology they have, to create a higher value proposition for their customers, which will help the company to grow, all because of the M&A that took place together.
Absolutely. And one thing that I would add to this is we're also talking about new customers and providing new additional value for every customer. Another big thing on market expansion is also has to do with channels, and how you're able to expand your market reach through channels that you may not have had otherwise, whether it's direct channels or distributors that you would not have had access to before if you hadn't done through that acquisition.
And so people always ask, okay, so what's hot in M&A, especially in MedTech? We're finding that some of the hottest areas are areas where digital is proven to be scalable, and that's an important point to make. That there's a lot of companies that are out there in quote unquote digital healthcare that have amazing ideas, and every time sometimes I meet these people, and they make me feel a little silly in terms of where I'm at intelligence-wise, because what they thought of is crazy ingenious. However, it's not that helpful unless you figure out a way to commercialize it. And many of these companies, since the pandemic, that have come around in these digital opportunities, technologies, have had a challenge with that, and that's why you've seen fundraising. Or this seminar really is about M&A, but if you were to have a fundraising one, you would see digital investment in digital health back in 2020, 21 was through the roof, amazing. And it's quite a bit less these days because there's a recognition that being able to get something to market is not so easy in MedTech and in healthcare. And so you have to really think about the commercial models that are there and how do you plug yourself into those models. And yeah, you can change models, but it's going to take over time. So you have to figure out how you get in and then be able to improve the system when you're there. And there are ones that are doing it, and the ones that are doing it are getting amazing rewards for it, not only with their customers in the marketplace, but also if they're interested in finding out the value of their company. If they have any kind of ARR model that's proven scalable, there's a lot of high interest and a lot of high value in that. Some of the obvious other segments, cardio and neuro, are always pretty interesting segments. Obviously, in the hot topics these days around robotics and minimally invasive surgery continue to be there. Orthopedics, there was quite a bit of backup during the pandemic with orthopedics. For interesting discussion, maybe for a different time over a beer with some people about what an elective surgery should or should not have been during the pandemic. But a lot of times orthopedics was one of those. And so there became a waiting list for people that needed to have orthopedic surgery. In the U.S., less so, but in the countries that have more of the government models, so like UK and Canada and a lot of Europe, that's the case. And so there's a huge amount of volume of orthopedic procedures that are going to take place in the next few years, just because they're working through that backlog and waiting list of people that still need those surgeries. In terms of business models, companies that are looking to invest, they really like that disposable model, the single-use products that are out there. And in many cases, we've seen companies are able to prove that the single-use value proposition is actually better than having it be sterilized. Because one of the first reactions sometimes to a single-use product is, well, what about the environment? What about that? And actually, in many cases, if you actually do the complete study of the cycle of what it takes to sterilize a product in a hospital, it's actually taking more energy. The chemicals they use, there's a lot of things that go into it. Actually, the value proposition for the single-use product is actually better for our whole ecosystem. It's better for the environment. And of course, then the business model is better for the companies themselves. So it works out really well. And of course, if I went back to the patient,
I was going to think exactly that. As a patient, I think I would rather have a single-use product, something that is new and just used on me, than something that has been used, sterilized, reused many, many times, and re-sterilized many, many times. They just don't perform the same after a number of uses. So yes, I was going exactly the same place.
Do you know where your endoscope is been? Right?
Exactly.
And there's a whole company that's made money on taking endoscopes from being reusable products to single-use products. So the model is out there. And then contract manufacturing, because the whole overall industry is growing. And I think a lot of TMD subscribers, are contract manufacturing in that space. So it's good news for you. At whatever point you might be ready to think about you're selling your company and the value proposition you might have. Contract manufacturing continues to be very, very hot for MedTech company, for contracting CM for MedTech for life sciences, especially if you're a CDMO. CMs to do well. CDMOs do even better. Contract for design and manufacturing services that you would have, because the overall industry continues to grow, which continues to create opportunity for contract manufacturers, and the companies themselves, the large companies, the J&Js and the Strykers, and that they really have decided as an industry, for the most part, to focus on what are their strengths. If they're really good in urology, let's be good in urology, but we don't need to be worrying about being the contract manufacturer for certain things. So they're really focused on their go-to-market channels and being successful in how they get products to markets versus their innovation themselves, because they always know they can go out and acquire innovation if they need it. And so therefore they're not investing as much in manufacturing. They're counting on contract manufacturers to do that, which makes contract manufacturing a very viable space in M&A. And as announced at the beginning of this program with the Amphenol acquisition of Carlisle was one example of that. We earlier sold a contract manufacturer this year as well. So in terms of continuing that conversation, innovation, digital, the focus has changed. So it's not just about having something that can be digitize something. I'll practice that 3 times. Digitize something, but it has to become clinical. But it can't just be an app. It can't just be an app. It's really got to be around something that can be useful. It can be, first of all, the patient has to impact the patient outcomes, and then it's got to has a commercial model that's viable, and it can recurring revenue. So ARR can really be key there to the success relative to M&A. That's really the focus that we are talking about today. In terms of AI, everybody's talked about AI. AI has had amazing impacts in the financial markets this year for sure, and every company is considering how they get involved with it at different levels. And AI often in our industry is more machine learning AI than the use of how are we learning things and to be able to read images, how are we doing things to be able to plan surgeries and that, and that's going to continue to grow. And on the healthcare side of it, AI is more the large language models going into the Epic systems and that. And what we've seen is the AI that can help get into the reimbursement models and be able to do that more efficiently, that's doing really well. The ones where you're helping like, for example, in radiology, to be able to read images and that sort of thing. There's not been a reimbursement established for some of that just yet. Yet we know 10 years from now, all of that's going to be done that way. But the commercial model hasn't caught up yet. So that's struggling just a little bit more. And then in terms of robotics, of course, you say robotic, it's hot. Then you have to come specifically, what are you doing within robotics? So some of the contract manufacturers around that are doing pretty well. Getting to robotics that are footprints that are smaller is helpful. Disposables, because you're growing procedures right now in robotics. And so that's creating an avenue for disposables for those procedures. So that's also very hot. And then obviously being able to show your value proposition, which is the cost versus reward model. So I think we're getting to a point where we're getting close to ready to summarize here. Really now is a good time to consider exiting if you're thinking about doing that in the next year or two. The election is not going to impact valuations or timing. The dry powder is there. People are committed to spending it if they have the right opportunity. Deal value right now is ticking up. It's going to tick up even more with the interest rate cuts that just took place. People are looking for quality sellers on the marketplace. And with the election, even depending upon who wins, it may even expedite the need for some M&A. We saw that back in 2021. The whole market saw it. There was concern when we changed administrations that the new administration was going to take away the previous administration tax cuts, maybe even raise taxes higher. And so a lot of people that were by the point where they were thinking about exiting, they rushed to do that in early 21 before anything could change. Fortunately, things didn't really change, so that was good, but that did help the valuations at that time. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that again. There seems to be a lot of promises around tax increases on some sides of this equation. And so if that happens, I think it always takes a while for that to evolve. So people will be expediting to get out. If you're thinking about doing the next couple of years, you might as well do it now before anything changes in terms of the taxes. And then at the end of the day, quality mid-market deals are more in demand than ever, especially in MedTech. Strategics are looking for their tuck-ins. They need innovation for their sales pipelines. And as we mentioned before, the private equity firms continue to have extraordinary amounts of dry powder, and they're more focused on medical and MedTech than ever before. And just as we close, we wanted to talk about, when we talk about MedTech and M&A, and we're talking about middle market, that's really what a core focus of our practice is. What is middle market? Really, anything with any company that has quality products and solutions in MedTech that has EBITDA greater than $1 million. That's hot in the middle market today. Obviously, the bigger, the better, the more value that gets equated with it, or in terms of software solutions, ARR greater than 1 million. So if you are considering selling or know someone who is, now is the time for a serious evaluation of your opportunity in MedTech and contract manufacturing for all the reasons that we've described. So I guess at this point, Elizabeth, we can turn it back to you for questions and say thank you to our audience for listening.
Hi, Dave and Florence. Wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it, as always. We do have a question. I know that you were saying, now is the time for selling. How long does a transaction, from start to finish typically take? Does it depend on the size of the company and the complexity of the sale?
Yeah, that certainly can impact it, Elizabeth. It's a great question. But typically it's a 6 to 9 month process, and for a middle market type of deal. Because if you want to do it right, I could come and offer Elizabeth's medical company, make you an offer today, and we could probably close the deal in 4 weeks. But I probably don't really know the value of what I'm buying, and you may not even know the value of what you're trying to get out of your business. So for the most part, we do a pretty good process. You want to do a nice process to evaluate your universe of buyers, let them know that you're for sale in the right way. And there's a non-confidential way of doing that, so you don't have to tell the world that you're for sale. So that's kind of what you go through with a good M&A advisor, is figure out who might be interested in your type of business, and then you get confidentiality agreements in place, and then you have created a document around your business that kind of shows a value proposition for your business going forward for a buyer, or maybe certain types of buyers. You could have that kind of tailored to different types of buyers out there, and that takes a little bit of time to put all that together. So usually you can get to really a good indication of interest and what your valuation might be in about 3 months. And then maybe to negotiate a good deal with some of those core buyers that you've found out that could be interested, that takes another 4 to 6 weeks. And then to close the deal in terms of diligence, and that usually takes 2 to 3 months. So overall, on average, it's about 6 to 9 months. Things can be done very quickly if needed. Sometimes you might lose a little bit in the process, and sometimes it can take longer if there's more complicated things in terms of cross-border deals and regulatory approvals and that sort of thing.
Great. And another question that was a message to me, seeing the locations that MedWorld Advisors are in now, do you see one region that is busier with M&A or coming up with more startups that seem to be catching attention, between the US, Switzerland, Hong Kong, Germany? I'm seeing all of your locations.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things for us. We've been international from the start, and we do see variations in different regions. What we've really found is in today's environment in 2024, Europe and the US are pretty similar in terms of landscape. There's strategics there, there's private equity in Europe, same thing in the US. And so the M&A environment, a greater portion of our practice actually is going towards Europe because of that for the middle market companies. Now, in terms of the startup world, that's a little bit different because those tend to be more strategic deals, because private equity doesn't get so involved in companies that don't have a lot of revenue or a lot of profit yet. In a country that really right now is excelling in that is France. They really put together a nice ecosystem. It's interesting. France is an interesting conundrum because it's really tough to run a business in France. If you're an established company, all these roles, you hire somebody and they don't go to work, and you got to pay them for 10 years before you can fire them. So a lot of people struggle to buy bigger companies there. But in terms of the startup world, innovation, they've really made it attractive for companies to start up. So a lot more people are self-employed, partly because they don't want to have employees there. So it's an interesting world environment there. But overall, at a macro level, going back to the middle market M&A, Europe is very strong right now because of both the PE influence. It wasn't there probably 10 years ago when we first started, but it is there now, especially focusing in healthcare. Definitely strong in the US. And then Asia, China is really interesting. It was very strong before the pandemic. Since the pandemic, people have been more leery with China, and so you got to pick your spots there. And then with the rest of Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and India, there are some opportunities there. But in terms of medical industries, not as far as established companies, there's some contract manufacturing, but not a lot of companies there. So there is some play there, but not as big.
Yeah, I would add one more thing to what Dave said, Elizabeth, with regards to startups. Europe really has created an environment where startups are actually encouraged. They're funded by the government up to a certain point. And so starting a company, I'm not going to say that it's easier. There are rules and regulations just the same, but they're not looking for funding the same way a US startup may have to look for funding. And so that changes their ability to at least get off the gate. And it doesn't mean, again, that they're going to succeed in the long run. They're going to be better at what they're doing. But it gives them a different platform and a different way of starting, which really didn't exist 15 years ago, but has definitely taken off in Europe and allows good technologies to come up. And Dave is right. France, if you're looking at some of the acquisition of some of those early stage companies, they've actually done very, very well in the last couple of years, just for that reason.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank Dave and Florence both for the wonderful webinar. And I also want to thank our 2024 webinar series sponsors again, Renishaw and Amphenol CIT. And just as a reminder, we will have this posted and emailed out to everyone who registered and attended, hopefully within about 5 business days. And everyone can check out our upcoming webinars on todaysmedicaldevelopments.com/webinar. So Dave and Florence, always a pleasure to hear your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Have a good day.